Hey everybody, KC here. So as part of my morning news beat at 20 conversation series, I wanted to talk to one of my favorite independent retailers in the country. And the stores I'm referring to are Newport Avenue Market, which operates in Bend, Oregon, one of my favorite places in the country. And now Newport Avenue Market actually has two additional stores called Oliver Lemons. And their growth from one store to three stores has only happened in the last couple of years. And I thought that'd be kind of interesting. So I wanted to talk to Lauren Johnson, CEO of the company. It is a family-owned company, although it's actually an ESOP. So brings a completely different perspective to what it's like to being independent, especially in a time where, listen, we all know that companies are having labor issues, labor shortages. When you're an ESOP, it's a little bit different. So I reached out to Lauren to do a conversation. One of the things I found out is she's not Lauren Johnson anymore. Lauren's gotten married, and now she's Lauren Redman. So listen, I talked about companies coming out of the pandemic differently than they went in. Lauren came out of the pandemic differently than when she went in. So anyway, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Lauren Redman of Newport Avenue Market. So Lauren, welcome to Morning News Beat. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I have just introduced you to the audience, and I introduced you as Lauren Redman, and people may now be looking at you who know you going, I'm sorry, what did he say? Because until a couple of weeks ago, you were Lauren Johnson, but you have just gotten married. So congratulations, mazel tov.
Thank you.
You don't look like marriage has aged you at all, but it's only been a couple of weeks.
That's a ring. And a great husband.
There you go. So anyway, we're doing this as Morning News Beat celebrates its 20th anniversary. So I'm curious. No, thank you. I'm curious. 20 years ago, what were you doing, and how you think about the industry and innovation and change? How has that evolved in that time?
So not a traditional route, right? Like I was 16 and I had to apply for a job at the stores.
You're 16.
And then I went through life. And 20 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom. I dabbled in the family-owned business, and I've now been back for 11 years and in the position of CEO and president and employee ownership. And boy, oh boy, has time flown and changed. And when I visit with my folks who, have done so much in our industry, they're kind of wowed, especially in the last 18 months. They're just wowed, never having experienced anything close to what our industry has and the world has in the last 18 months.
Yeah. It's sort of, and I want to come back to being employee owned in a second, but it's sort of it's generally agreed that for most companies during the pandemic, that in 18 to 20 months, most companies experienced as much growth and acceleration, especially in terms of e-commerce, as they might have in 3 or 4 or 5 years. It happened all very, very quickly. Does that hold true for how you changed how your company has sort of moved forward during the 18 months?
We purchased our third location in January of 2020. Wow. So, you've got your growing. And
you had only been, when did you purchase your second location?
In 2017.
Okay.
So employee owned in 2015. Second location in 2017. Third location in January of 2020. And then the pandemic hit.
Right.
It was unbelievable almost, It's hard to look back and reflect on that and have a real sense of just how dynamic, particularly 2020 was.
So there was all this change that was just created just by the simple fact that you were growing the company in terms of stores. but in the terms of the way you were operating, in terms of the way you were coming to market at a time where people were not going out, people were not going to restaurants, they were shopping more at supermarkets, they were eating home more. Did you have to make other changes in terms of the way you were marketing, merchandising, getting your products to people? In addition to the fact that you're grappling with this new thing that you had just bought.
Well, I would say, like other independents that are so good at pivoting, we were set up for success in that we already pulled from, 3, 4 major wholesalers. So we didn't experience the outs that a lot of people did. Not to say that there weren't some, because there were, but we were able to, on a dime, sometimes twice a day, change what we were doing, how we were doing it, the people we were relying on to get those goods and services. And I would say, honestly, looking back and also at the same time looking forward, the big boys really did a great job of responding in a very similar way. I think the big boys learned a lot about how independents have traditionally gone to market, and that being very nimble is critical to our success, and pivoting and doing all the key phrases that everybody knows now. But that was really where we found our success to lie.
You've always had you're very strong, fresh presentation, strong specialty foods orientation. I know people in that segment who were in some ways frustrated during the pandemic because they found themselves, selling way more toilet paper, paper towels, Clorox, all that stuff, and they were not able to spend as much time and effort on the stuff that they really loved doing, that they thought differentiated them in the marketplace, just during the really bad times of the pandemic. Did you feel that in any sense?
Absolutely. I think anybody that says otherwise is a liar. we were able to utilize folks from different departments, cross-train, so that we could be in business in the things we love to do, but also in the things that our customers were desperate to put their hands on. And having established well before the pandemic that we were the place to go for not just specialty things, but those day-to-day really beautiful produce items and all the things that make our business fun, meaning the perimeter. We were able to really maintain that for our customers. And we also were in a unique position in Bend, Oregon, to have people flocking at a time when really it was hunker down in your home. People were moving here. They were buying up real estate and homes faster than you could shake a stick at, and then realizing that they could buy those specialty things they were accustomed to in the big cities with us. So like most other grocery stores, business was pretty darn good. And we had a lot to be thankful for through the pandemic.
The word essential got used a lot, especially during the really bad days of the pandemic, mostly in terms of product, but also in terms of retail formats. Certain things were considered essential, other ones were not. Has it caused you to do you think about the word essential differently now than maybe you did 2 years ago? Especially because you have such a strong community orientation.
I would like to say that I do, but I don't. Our family and myself, we have always really preached to our staff how important what they do is, how they matter to our community. And I can't say that I had a crystal ball back then, but it's a true core belief and just a feeling in our hearts that what we do matters. We are essential to our community, and so much of that word community and what it involves is the experience you get in our stores. You come to catch up with your neighbors, and we didn't have that. So we had to create that through other avenues, be it social media, be it the love notes that we put out on a regular basis, but bringing it back to that essential part of our community that, yeah, we are all in this together. And thank you for supporting us, because we are your friends, we are your neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, talk about acting like you have a crystal ball, even if you don't actually have one. I mean, it seems to me that right now everybody's talking a lot about the difficulty at retail to find employees, right? Everybody's short of employees. I'm sure you're dealing with some of those same issues, but you've been an ESOP, you said, since 2015, and you're all in. That's not a percentage of the company; it's the whole thing. To do you think that I mean, one of the things we talk a lot about on Morning Newsbeat is the whole notion of, um, it's important, and if you're trying to figure out how to both attract and retain really good employees, one way is to make them feel like you're investing in them. You treat them like an asset instead of a cost. And because if they feel that a retailer is investing in them, they're going to feel more invested in the retailer. Having been spent a fair amount of time in your stores, I get that sense. Does this give you, do you think, an advantage during a time like this, that even if you're short employees, the employees you do have are really invested in making sure that they're not going someplace else because somebody says, oh, we're gonna pay $1 an hour more?
Yeah, so being an ESOP plays into that. Having our bookkeeping staff create this total paycheck snapshot that really outlines what it isn't just your hourly rate, but when you couple in all of the other benefits we provide, it's many, many dollars more than what you're making an hour. And then the ESOP piece on top of it, I had a gal on my staff say, Lauren, it's not about the benefits. It's great that you match on the 401k. It's great you do this, you do that. But that hourly wage is what's going to pay my rent and feed my family. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I can't argue with that. So when you look at the ESOP and how that plays into that dollar amount that's right in front of people, for those people that have a vested balance, through the pandemic, for grocery stores, we did well. We sold a lot of groceries. But what that meant for our valuation, looking back on last year, it means that I have checkers that have well over $60,000 in their vested balance of the ESOP. That's nothing else. That isn't their hourly rate. That isn't their 401k. That isn't their discount. It's not any of that. It's what's in front of them for a retirement savings plan that they would not otherwise have been able to contribute that kind of money to. So yes, the ESOP is just that. It's that added, oh my gosh, that's real money that was free to me. I showed up, I did my job, I got my paycheck, I got my benefits, I got my discounts. And then on top of that, I have this. Right. So yeah, I dare I say, a game changer for our employees.
Do you you said that you were thinking about being essential the same way before the pandemic as you were thinking during and even now. How do you think, if at all, differently about innovation? And to what degree do you think you were able to, were you able to innovate as quickly? And I'm talking about it even from technology point of view. I guess here's what I'm thinking is I know that because you and I had conversations about a couple of technological things you were thinking about doing before the pandemic that you were not able to do. I'm not going to mention the company because I don't want to give them a free commercial, but also it's not really fair to them or you. But were not able to do it because suddenly you had this thing to deal with. So I guess, and yet a lot of, in terms of the ability to innovate and also pace of innovation, do you think about that differently at all now, having come out of the last 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. For independent markets, it is hard to innovate on the technology side because it's so cost prohibitive. It is so expensive to do that. So it's difficult. It's difficult for us to think about that next step because, as an example, electronic shelf tags, we've done it for years. We've done it for almost 20 years. So what's the next thing that we can get a good bang for our buck on? The online shopping, we had just started to roll that out. And again, everybody's doing it, but for an independent, it's difficult. It's timely. It's very, in a nutshell, a tough one. Right. But boy, we finally got it on board and we're doing it. So those next innovation pieces, electric vehicle charging and the things that we see when we're at conferences and shows like NGA and all the different food shows. We're trying. It's hard because now with the employee shortage, you're recognizing, oh my gosh, we did that volume of business last year. This is great that we were able to accomplish that with fewer employees. So how do we move forward, ramp up, and keep it all together, right? It's not easy. And continue your growth, not for growth's sake, but to continue your growth and what that looks like. So spending time in the business versus spending time on the business.
It betrays my bias to some degree, but I always think, and especially for an independent, that produce wall, which is your produce wall behind you, is perhaps the most important kind of innovation, right? That's where, you can have all the bells and technological bells and whistles, but at the end of the day, that's what distinguishes you, to me.
Yeah, the investment in your store to make it look pretty and be inviting and create experience for your customers, right? Like that's what it boils down to. We can have all the cool shit on the back end, but if we don't have a great experience where people feel warm and fuzzy when they're in our stores, coupled with great customer service, then it's all for naught.
I would have said on the over under, by the way, it wouldn't have taken you as long to say cool shit in the middle of this interview.
I was on good behavior, Kevin.
I'm curious if is there a technological innovation out there that, and I mean this I'm not even specifically in terms of your stores, that you think you're maybe surprised has not taken off to the degree that you would have expected? Is there something that, or at this point, is it sort of like, everything? I mean, because it's all been dizzying over the last 20 months or so.
Right. Just reading, I think this morning in Morning Newsbeat about that just walk out technology in a 35,000 square foot store. That's, to me, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I cannot fathom that and trying to manage that and run that. I think we're going to see more of it. That's not rocket science. But in terms of what's ahead, gosh, it's dizzying.
The key will be, I think, for that technology is going to be, to what extent will it become affordable for companies like yours, right? Because right now it's still
a long way off.
Long way off. But I also think what it does is and I know you feel this way about your checkouts, right? If you're going to actually have people working the checkouts, they better make it a great experience, right? It's got to be part of the selling point, as opposed to that awful way every shopping experience ends, which is too often exactly how customers feel about it, right? Even if the store was great, man, checking out is just awful.
Yeah, we want to avoid that, right? Like, that's why we talk to our checkers and our box kids. We still do carryouts, and we'll have our weekly orientation for the newbies tonight, and I pop in, say hi. I don't run the trainings, and that onboarding, but it's shaking their hand and saying, I really am happy you're here because you're important. You may actually be one of the most important people in the store for our customers because you're the last experience. So it doesn't matter how slick the latest, greatest self-checkout or U-scan is. If the customers had a crappy experience with that, it doesn't matter it just doesn't matter. Yeah. It's really about the people, right? I mean, it's about the people. You can have all the automation you want. You can have cool shelf tags that are electronic. You can have all these things, the little robot going around the aisles. But if you don't have the people, what do you have?
Yeah. I'm sorry. So many of us during the past, year and a half, because we were all spending a lot more time at home and not getting to do things like, I didn't get to go to Oregon for 2 summers in a row.
I
know. But so many people were, doing things like, stay home. They were watching TV. They were streaming movies, streaming TV shows. I'm curious, was there one or two that what did you get addicted to during the pandemic that you just got, binged?
Well, for those people that know me, I tend to fall asleep very easily.
Yeah.
It just takes just a second. And so if I sit there and I relax, I fall asleep. So I was a little late to the game on the whole binging thing because I was busy selling groceries.
Right.
Had a little FOMO in that area, but being late to the game, I finally caught up and finished Sons of Anarchy, which I was incredibly entertained by. I thought it was fantastic. So I don't know. That was about it. I mean, honestly, I was pretty busy.
You were pretty busy. I totally get that. I've never seen an episode of Sons of Anarchy, but my wife and daughter thought it was like the best thing they'd ever seen. And they would start quoting lines over dinner. And I'm going, what is coming out of your mouths?
It was cheap thrills, no doubt. I mean, honestly, we just finished it because it takes me a while.
Oh, that's so funny. But now here's one of the reasons I'm asking that question of everybody that I'm doing this series of conversations with, because it seems to me that there's a lesson there, though, which is that, and even if it didn't apply to you as much as it applied to a lot of other people,
like the rest of the world,
is that like the rest of the world, is that because people got used to the idea that they could get all this they wouldn't go to the movies anymore. They could get pretty much anything at home. It changed the way they thought about entertainment, right? Now,
think about Redbox. Think about Redbox. We had 2 red boxes in front of our one store. Dead.
Really?
Prior to the pandemic, it was incredible business. People figured it out. They were staying at home and streaming. They figured it out. Even the less tech savvy people among us. So, I mean, you want to talk about a game changer?
Yeah.
And
the other thing is, though, it seems to me that also speaks to how once people got used to that, the notion that they suddenly, for the things that it didn't matter, not as opposed to the produce behind you, for things that don't matter, that go into the store, I think that's part of the whole psychology of why people got used to e-commerce, right? Because suddenly it was, no, when things don't matter, then I don't need to go there. When it does matter, I will. And I think, to me, that's a very consistent sort of psychology. People will go to a James Bond movie or a Marvel movie because they get a sense that it's going to be something different on the big screen. But for movies where it doesn't matter, then they'll just watch it at home.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you.
So it's interesting. So when going forward, when you think about the next 18 to 20 months, somebody I talked to, by the way, for this conversation said we should reconvene in 20 years. I pointed out that I'd be 87. I might not still be doing Morning Newsbeat. So let's just look 20 months out. Do you have a goal in terms of what you'd like to achieve in terms of thinking forward, something you'd like to be different about your stores, different about your company 20 months from now than perhaps it is today?
We have a lot of irons in the fire, and that'll take 20 months. That's a central kitchen. That's mission control. Others might call it a corporate office. That's a public meeting space. That's potentially another store. That's plenty busy for me.
If you get that all done in 20 months, you've had a very good 20 months. Well, Lauren, I really appreciate you doing this. You've always been incredibly kind to me and supportive of Morning Newsbeat, and which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you in this series of conversations. I think you're as terrific a representative of the independent sector as anybody I can think about in the country. So
thank you.
Congratulations to you for that. Congratulations on your marriage. And I can't tell you how much I look forward to being able to come to Bend sometime soon, please God, and see you in person.
Well, we'll look forward to it, Kevin, and congratulations on 20 years, my friend.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Take care now.
You too. Thank you.